And now we're moving along to our next keynote speech. And the next keynote will be about boosting people's financial resilience, evidence, and policy action. And our keynote speaker will be Mr. Yoshiki Takeuchi, who is the Deputy Secretary General of the OECD since November 2021. His portfolio includes the strategic direction of the OECD policy on employment, labor and social affairs, education, skills, well-being, inclusion, sustainability, and equal opportunities, financial and enterprise affairs, along with the Center for Entrepreneurship, SMEs, regions and cities. Where do you get the time? He also represents the OECD at the Financial Stability Board and guides OECD work with the Asia-Pacific region. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, there will be a coffee break, but I'm still here. And I'd like to do my best to make my presentation interesting, relevant, and fun. But let me try. Thank you very much for this occasion to join you today for your insights regarding the role of financial education in catalyzing financial resilience. I have been working with the commissioner a number of times, and we have met in October. There, young students were there. It was quite interesting, and that also taught us a good opportunity, the importance of the financial education. And today, now we're doing this again on this financial resilience and financial well-being. And when it comes to this financial resilience and financial well-being, the households and individuals are quite, how to say, now today they're faced with high living costs. So they're in a very difficult position. And that's the reason why they're tested, how much they know about financial literature. And that's the thing that you had taken up in your research. And we have been doing that. Let me refer to that later on. But first, I would like to stress over the past 2 decades that OECD has worked on financial literacy, which has also entailed close relationship and close cooperation with EU Commission. And for example, we have been working closely with DG Reform and EU member states on the design and implementation of effective financial literacy policies, including national strategies. Quite a number of panelists and speakers mentioned about national strategies. They are quite important. And we need to come together to come up with a sort of a national strategy. Of course, it needs to be tailor-made, but it's, at the same time, we must learn from lots of lessons that other countries have learned. So good practices on national strategies is quite important. And then, of course, we have done our work with DG FISMA. We had this competence framework on financial literacy for adults, released in 2022, and for children and youth, released in 2023. So I think OECD and the EU has a rich data, with a rich, how to say, they're quite keen and understands the importance of financial literature. Thanks for you. And so this is the reason why we are in a very good relationship working together. But first we have to measure, how can we measure the impact of financial resilience? That's the starting point. And that is what you had tried to do. Yes, one measure of the financial resilience is the ability of individuals and households to cope when faced with an adverse economic shock. 2 examples. According to the 2023 OECD International Financial Literacy Survey, which included 20 EU member states, when asked whether they could cover their living expenses for at least 3 months if they lost their main source of income, less than half of the adults responded yes. Less than half of the adults said no, they cannot survive for the next coming 3 months if they lose their job, for example. Another important measure is the ability to pay for an expense equivalent to 1 month of income without borrowing. On average, about 1 in 2 respondents are able to pay such major expenses without help. And what is not good is that our latest evidence also indicates that compared to the situation pre-COVID and before the cost of living crisis, financial resilience is declining in 11 countries. We are proposing the importance of financial literacy. But compared to before the COVID, what we are actually seeing is more people not resilient enough. So that is something that we need to deal with. And of course, there are differences between countries. Italy and Poland, their numbers went down, but Germany went up. So there are things that we can do more for each country to make sure that people needs to be aware of the crisis, financial crisis they might be facing. And that's where financial literacy comes in. And in that sense, Commissioner, you're quite right in saying that your health is your wealth, but at the same time, your wealth is your health. Because if you have good wealth, then you are more resilient. That is shown in the number of how much can you bear when you lose your job, 3 months. If you have a wealth enough to bear for the 3 months, that means you're mentally more healthy in a sense. So that's the first point about this financial literature. Then the next question is about how to increase the financial resilience. For one, evidence from the latest survey and the experience of the OECD International Network and Financial Education, as we call it, INFE, highlight avenues for further policy and stakeholder actions to improve financial resilience. Based on the current economic context, key suggestions include: first, of course, raising awareness about the importance of financial literacy and the needs for adequate resources. Raising awareness along with resources is very important. And that is something that you also wanted to mention. We need money, and that's the reason why we need a good EU commissioner who must be powerful in raising resources. And secondly, continuing the design and implementation of national financial literacy strategies. That's what I've said before already, so I won't repeat it again. And third, implementing innovative financial education approaches as part of harnessing behavioral insights and digital technologies. In the days of AI, in the days of generic AI, we always discuss about education and technologies, education of digitalization. As has been said, I also do work on education. When we see the education ministers, they always discuss about how do we teach the students about AI, generic AI. In doing that, they should not forget about financial literacy, because digitalization and financial literacy goes hand in hand. And in that sense, I think Portugal is doing a good work. We worked on the design of a digital financial literacy strategy. So we need to mix this digital world and the financial literacy world and come up with a sort of a digital financial literacy strategy. And I'm quite sure what you're trying to do here is that sort of thing. And the bottom line here is data. OECD is proud of itself of collecting data. And financial and digital financial literacy data is also indispensable. So we need to start from collecting data and come up with good practices, share it, and good national strategy. Let me turn to another aspect. It is about the importance of catering to the needs of specific socioeconomic groups, particularly vulnerable ones. They need to continue supporting people. We need to continue to supporting people with lowest financial literacy and well-being, and place an emphasis on individuals at risk of financial hardships. So it's about really John and Mary on the street. They are the people who needs to be taken care of, and we must focus on them. Continue to focus on them. And how we do it? Here are key steps. First, it is important to properly define vulnerability. We are trying to do it. The G20 OECD Task Force on Financial Consumer Protection is now working on a project to develop a more nuanced understanding of vulnerability and how to respond to it. In this work, the task force builds on the 2022 revision of the G20 OECD high-level principles on financial consumer protection, which includes a greater emphasis on paying special attention to consumers who may be experiencing financial vulnerability. Second, preventing financial stress and vulnerability based on financial resilience and vulnerability data itself needs to be an important objective for the policymakers. So policymakers should write down on their agenda, how would you deal with the vulnerability of the people on the street when it comes to financial difficulties, financial literacy? So that's the thing. That's another thing that we think should stress when we see any of your politicians near you. Is it on your list when you talk about your agenda? Third, tailored and evidence-based initiatives, digital or in person. Addressing the needs of a situation of vulnerability needs to have a broader reach. So we must always be conscious. We can discuss this amongst us, of course, but this is the starting point. How can we reach out? How can we have a broader reach? I know I'm preaching to the priest, but this is something we should never forget about. So to close, ladies and gentlemen, as we move forward, OECD, along with INFE, remains steadfast in its mission to foster global collaboration when it comes to financial literacy. There was a point made. Yes, we can do one by one, but by working together, we can do much more in a more effective way. And that's one of the reasons we are having this sort of gathering. And I can promise you here that OECD, along with the EU, the G20, the Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion, we will continue to work together. And if there is any opportunity that OECD can work together, please call on us, and we are more than delighted to come to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Takeuchi. You bought everyone 1 extra minute of coffee break. Thank you. So, yes, now we will take the coffee break, but because we're behind schedule, rather than the overly generous 30 minutes, we're going to have a 20-minute coffee break, and we will be returning here at precisely 45, a quarter before the hour, at 11:45. And so take your coffee, do whatever you need to do, and be back here precisely at 11:45. Thank you. Thank you.